are joining us for the first time, let me briefly introduce Socioscopia. The Socioscopia, as founded by our great Gurni and Jagbosheni, is a global online platform dedicated to promoting academic growth and inclusivity and interdisciplinary dialogue in the fields of social sciences and humanities. Our mission is to democratize and access practitioners can learn from one another and engage in meaningful conversations. Through our platform, we regularly share calls for papers, conferences, internship, workshops, fellowships, publication opportunities, and academic resources. And alongside this, we organize discussion series, conferences, and book conversations that encourage critical thinking and collaborative learning. So we invite all of you to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated with our upcoming opportunities and events. And we hope to bring as many as possible. So we are also excited to share that our official website will be launching soon. So please stay connected. And so before we begin today's discussion, I do have a few quick announcement. So we host this academic series sessions twice every month, featuring distinguished scholars from diverse disciplines. If you're interested in presenting your own research or academic work in one of our future sessions, we would love to hear from you. We'll be posting our speaker interest form in the chat box shortly. Please do fill it, and our team will get in touch with you. We'll give you a platform for inclusivity and access, and we'll also be sharing the participants certificate form in the chat box. Uh, would you be sending that form, Gurni or Jakushani? So we'll also be so as for today's format, Dr. Safrine will first deliver her presentation and discuss her book. We are very excited. And once the presentation concludes, we'll open the floor for an interactive discussion. So, and you're welcome to post your questions and reflections in the chat throughout the session, or you may raise them during the discussion. We'll do our best to accommodate as many as possible. And so, now, further ado, let us move on to the heart of our today's session. We have the enormous privilege of discussing a remarkable contribution to the growing scholarship of women's life writing on autobiography and identity. It's something we need in India more, in South Asia more. The book, the mapping the trajectory of Indian Muslim women's life writing and autoethnographical approach, explores the lived experience of Indian Muslim women through their autobiographical writings. So rather than treating these narratives simply as personal stories, the book demonstrates how life writing becomes a powerful lens through which we can understand Indian history, culture, politics, gender relations, and the everyday negotiations of identity, basically. So by bringing together literary analysis with autoethnographical perspectives, the volume kind of invites us to critically engage about how personal narratives challenge dominant histories and create alternative space of knowledge. So it reminds us that what individual experience are deeply connected to broader social structures, making life writing an important site for understanding questions of gender and community. So this kind of promises us to be an insightful conversation for anyone interested in women's studies, literature, sociology, cultural studies, psychology, and interdisciplinary research. So let me introduce the speaker. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, Dr. Anne Safrine. Dr. Safrine is currently working as an independent researcher, and she completed her PhD in English from Stella Maris College, Chennai. Her research spans several interdisciplinary domains. Her areas of interest include psychology, journalism, Indian literature, women's writings, autoethnography, and life writing. Memory, identity, and lived experience intersect across literature and society, making it a significant contributions to the study of women's autobiographical writings. We're truly honored to have you here, Dr. Safrine, with us today and to discuss her fascinating work. And we would take a lot of ideas and inspiration and research behind this publication. It's a very warm welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. The floor is yours now.
Um, Hello, all. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Riddhi, for that warm welcome, for your generous introduction. Truly means a lot. And this is my second association with Socioscopia. I think you people are really doing a wonderful job by giving an opportunity for us to discuss certain scholarship that really needs attention, as you were mentioning. And to be honest, this is my very first book discussion forum, and I'm really happy to discuss my book here. And let me just share my presentation without any delay. Just give me it says the sharing option has been disabled. Can you just help me with that?
Yeah, let me help you with that.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I made you co-host, so you probably
yeah,
would
I
be
think
able
now.
to.
Yeah,
Can you share now? Do you have the option to share?
1 second, 1 second. Yeah, it shows that I can share now, so just
Yeah, I made you co-host of the session, so that okay.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Where I'm just trying. 1 second.
Are you still experiencing any technical difficulties? We
Says,
can
but
share. I mean, we can see your screen,
can
but
you see? Can you see my
yes,
PPT?
yes. Now it's visible. Maybe you can. What you can still do is, for better visibility, you can just make it a slideshow mode or something, so that
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah. I'll do that. I'll do that.
yeah, yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Then
Okay. Yeah, I hope
yeah,
my slides are
it's
changing here. Is it reflecting there also?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
It's
perfect.
changing. It's changing.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So, the title of my book, as Riddhi has already introduced, is Mapping the Trajectory of Indian Muslim Women's Life Writing, an Autoethnographical Approach. So, basically, you see the keywords are present in the title itself. So, it's life writing and it's life writings of Indian Muslim women. So, basically, this particular topic has been my area of interest right from my PhD days. I have a YouTube introduction video that I'll see if I'm able to play that. You're able to see the video? Mapping the trajectory of Indian Muslim
Yeah,
women's
yeah.
life, an autoethnographical approach. Is it audible? Can you hear?
Yes, it is.
Edited by
Yes,
N.
it is.
Safrine, independent researcher in English literature, India. This volume brings together interdisciplinary essays exploring how autoethnographic narratives reclaim the silenced voices of Muslim women as spaces of resistance. Spanning diverse Indian cultural and historical contexts, it contributes meaningfully to the study of Indian Muslim women's literature. The volume also aims to open new pedagogic possibilities in this field. Book Life Writings of Indian Muslim Women is going to focus on the writings of prominent Muslim female authors from an autoethnographical perspective. So, this particular volume aims to talk about the identity of Muslim women and how it intersects with different factors like class, caste, and gender. The contributors of this volume have analyzed text from different perspectives. We have text written by Sushrutai and Atia Hussain, other popular female Muslim writers who have been observing India right from the time of partition, pre-independence era, and post-independence movement as well. So this book is definitely going to be a value addition for any scholar or researcher who's going to look into the factors of how the country itself is shaping the identity of the Indian Muslim women. As the editor of this volume, it gives me great pleasure to launch this book at this time because the interest for Muslim women writing has been growing. Many researchers are focusing on these voices, especially to bring their voices out of the way and to ensure that their lived experiences are also portrayed in the most realistic manner in the way that they've actually lived through. So I feel really happy, and with a thoughtful foreword written by Professor Heidel Dix, I think this collection is going to be of great interest for any researcher, scholar, or expert who's working in the area of life writing, autoethnography. Basically, the chapters that span across this volume is going to focus on how the individual self has been observing the community. So through the voices of these writers, through the characters of these writers, you're going to see how female Muslim women are actually shaping their identity as well as the people around them. So I hope it's going to be a fruitful endeavor. Thank you.
This book is included in leading academic databases. So I think that is a very general introduction that I've given for the video for the video content. So this is the book cover, as you can see, and the front cover. Yeah, this is the entire cover design. So, what inspired me to work on this project? My PhD was on Muslim women's life writing. So, when I started, I couldn't explore more because there was a restriction. I could just take only few texts. But as I started working on the research, close to a period of 5 years, I realized there's so much connected with this topic that at least I could take this. I'm planning to convert this entire project itself into a postdoc opportunity that I'm really looking for, because when it comes to Indian Muslim women's writing, it's like not just their life writing alone. Through their life, one can hear about the history, the culture, the politics, basically the epoch of their time. And it's very different for them, because I feel it's like when you compare with the other women, I think there are challenges. Of course, there are different ways with which women try to voice out their rights, their freedom. But when it comes to Muslim women, I feel there's something totally different. I feel there are still more voices that has to be heard out from the veil. And this is what kind of drew me closer to these kind of texts. And as I started approaching these texts, I started using autoethnography as a theoretical approach for these life writings, where I could see there's a strong connection between Muslim women and the culture that they had been inheriting, especially the traditions, the rituals. So when I started reading the life writing text, I felt that there was a very strong relationship between their life and the culture that they came from. And it was kind of a love hate relationship. They did love their culture, their the tradition that they are coming from for certain reasons, but at the same time there were certain reasons that they were giving that it was trying to control them. So it was like, love hate relationship that we can actually see. But whatever it is, I felt that they were actually acting as cultural commentators who are giving us a whole idea of what their ethnic background is and what really happens within their society. So I felt it was more valuable from that point of view. And I felt it was like a first hand account, the witnesses that we can really get at that point of time. And most of my texts were focusing on an era where the country itself was struggling for independence, the pre-independent era, then the partition, and then after independence. So still the country was struggling to kind of settle down and get an identity for itself. And along with the country, these Muslim women were also struggling parallelly to find their own identity. So that was very interesting to put both their journeys together. So there were research gaps that I found. Mostly life writings for Muslim women were, they were not very prominent in case of studying in the life writing arena. And also I found out that if a life writing text is found, it's like mostly it's just the personal experience of the person that's actually given importance to, more than the cultural or the political or the historical background, which was very much needed, I felt. So these kind of research gaps and the text that I kept discovering which I couldn't include in my PhD journey, I decided that I will work on it as a book or something when time comes. So once I finished my PhD, I had some time, and after I took up independent research, where I was not given to this whole stress of working in an institution, and I had this free time. And then I started thinking about this topic, and when I was working on it, I found out that there was still lack of scholarship related to Indian Muslim women's life writing. And that's how the whole idea came in, and I submitted the proposal, and it was accepted. And close to a year I was working on this particular project. So the focus of the edited volume was definitely the voices of Indian Muslim women from diverse field, from history, from politics and literature. And I was focusing on the marginalized voices in the sense, for example, if you take up the autobiography of any Muslim female a writer, you could see that she will not only talk about her life. Obviously, it's about the life of the women that she's been witnessing, maybe her grandparents. It's also about her aunt, and it's about her sisters, also the servants who stayed with them. So mostly, if you see, there are a lot of stories that come along with that particular personal narrative. So I wanted to focus on that. So I felt I need to trace out these marginalized voices, which the writer is trying to actually represent through her personal story. So autoethnography. So if you see autoethnography, that is the keyword, in the title itself. So what is the relationship between life writing and autoethnography? We all know auto means self. So life writing is representing yourself through writing. So the connection between the self and culture is what I was really looking into. Because I found that, reading, approaching a life writing text of Indian Muslim women, it had a lot of stories of culture to talk about. And those stories were strongly tied up with history, with the political situation at that time. Somewhere these women were, kept in a position where they were just inhabiting a space behind the veil, and it was appearing as though maybe the society, the non-Muslim society, would have thought that they're just women behind the veil, so where they will never have a voice or something, they're just into the zenana. But actually what was happening is, they were raising out their voices, they were trying to share their thoughts, and they were writing poetry, they were trying to publish their own literature. And they were equally involved, like the men folk in the family. They were trying to do a lot of things other than just cooking or serving the men in the family. So they were trying to explore with art, they were trying to explore with different forms of expressing their self, and also supporting the country, and also standing against the British and fighting out and showing that they also have this kind of patriotic feeling. All this was very surprising to me, until I read the text and I came in close contact with the text. I couldn't really find out that this was existing, because Zenana was considered as a place where it's just just women gossip, and they just connect and bond over. But then there are a lot of stories that were actually populating this kind of a space, and there were a lot of writing happening, painting happening, a lot of activities, productive activities, which people outside the Zenana, or sometimes even the men and the family, wouldn't be knowing about. And all these were coming out through the stories of the text that we were actually dealing in this book. And I felt that through these texts, what we could actually see is a redefining, reimagining the role of Muslim women. So now we see there's a lot of change, and one can just say, things are getting better. But still, we still need to find more voices, because still there are certain voices that are actually struggling to come into the center, come into the mainstream. So not just as women who just inhabit that particular space, the segregation that's put to them, or at the Zenana, but visualizing them or redefining their role as storytellers, as cultural theorists, exponents, as women of power and authority, as decision makers, and also someone who was influencing the Indian history. So throughout this book, you see chapters talking about royal Mughal women, women of power. These names, even I wouldn't have heard about unless those papers really came to me. I feel very privileged, and it's really very happy experience for me, because these papers that I got to edit as the editor of this volume, it opened few doors for me to explore the study further. And probably I'm wondering I should come out with another book, because a lot of text haven't been touched about or spoken about when it comes to Muslim women writing. Probably as literary scholars, we are aware of Muslim women writers like Ismat Shukta, Atia Hussein, and all, because they were popular in their literature field. So, as it is when it comes to literature, their stories might get heard, and we don't get to see about other women who are actually into different other fields, who were influencing and who were in power and authority, and who weren't given the chance to record their voices. So, all these things, I personally, it was a very what to say, a learning experience for me, very fruitful learning experience for me. When I started to read the chapters that came for the submission, I understood that there's so much more to be done, there's so many more voices that we need to unearth and explore. Book description. This book has 11 chapters, and it took about at least a year for me to work on this, because I initially got a lot of abstracts, but then after some point of time, somewhere people weren't, I couldn't find them coming back to me and submitting, because I felt this is a work, labor of love, because sometimes when we send this call for chapters, it's like people just want to get published, and they are in a hurry. But this was going to take time, and somewhere a few contributors couldn't wait, and they had to just leave in between. But then I think whoever submitted, they were really passionate about the subject. Maybe I could just find out from the papers that they gave, and these papers were really talking about the voices that have to be heard. And I think after reading the chapters, I found out that I can do more, reading and more analysis related to this particular stories that they were talking about. And this book has a thoughtful foreword written by Professor Hyward Dix, who also happens to be my external examiner who evaluated my thesis, and he's a specialist in autoethnographical studies. So contributions across different parts of the country. I think people were giving in a lot of papers from different states, and from early career researchers, doctoral candidates, faculty members across different universities from India. And it was nice to see, because it was an organic mix of both the faculty members as well as PhD scholars. And it was nice to connect with these people who are also working in the same field. And let me just walk you through certain chapters. I haven't included all the chapters, but then just putting certain texts in front of you to give you an idea as to what this volume is actually trying to do. So here, there's one chapter titled "Narrating the Stories of Culture," an autoethnographic reading of Harris There's "The Silence That Speaks," short stories by Indian Muslim women, and Atia Hussein's "Distant Traveler." So Atia Hussein, again, I think she came like few years back from 2014 or something. She was discovered, rediscovered, and now people know her as a prominent Indian a Muslim author. But then you see, there's a lot of stories that come out through the text. Especially, she has a autobiographical, a semi-autobiographical writing, as well as her collection of fiction. So this particular paper deals with fiction, that is Distant Travel, a collection of short stories. And again, if Atia Hussein is mentioned, it's always the sunlight on a broken column. That is her semi-autobiographical work, and the Laila character that's been spoken. But Distant Traveler is always, out of the picture. So again, if you see within the corpus of the writer, we are trying to take the work, focus on the works that has been forgotten, that has been again marginalized, probably because one work kind of overshadowed the other. So again, we found out that we were particularly giving attention to these kind of text that needed that mainstream attention. Same way, Silence That Speaks. So you can see from the title. But this particular text, I also read the entire book, because again, it was a revelation for me. I really wanted to know what the stories were, and very thoughtfully collected stories that spoke about experience of Muslim women, especially during the time of partition. And I think we have texts like the Urushi Butalia's text and all. We have, I'm not getting the name, but we do have partition literature and all. But then specifically, the experiences of Muslim women being recorded is kind of very less, and yet to be discovered and discussed. So these two texts were taken, and the focus was on culture again. So how women were connected with the culture, Muslim women, and how they carried the culture to the places that they traveled. Forcefully, they had to travel because of partition, but then the culture traveled with them, the stories of rituals, the traditions traveled with them, and it was deeply emotional. So again, there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot of nostalgia, and one can expect that, obviously. But then there was also the need to give them a chance to talk about their stories. And Silence That Speaks was a very, I think, few years back, 2021 or 2022, it was published. So I could still see how important this genre is actually becoming, and it's gaining attention. And then Rokia Sakawat Hussein's life writing, so Sultana's Dream and all, these were like popular existing texts. But then the text started looking into different perspectives. So, for example, the space, Zenana. So we all know that's the Muslim women's space. So what was actually happening within the space, the voices of Muslim women, and what kind of history that they were actually telling, because the stories you tell to yourself is actually shaping you, right? So if I'm going to write a life story of autobiography of my own story, sharing my own story, it's not going to be my story alone, because we don't exist in isolation. So it's going to be an interweaving of a lot of stories of other people who have shaped me, who have influenced me, who have made me realize who I am, right? And especially as a woman, I think I'll also be talking about the influence I had from the female in my life, from women in my life, right? So personal history and experiences of Parda, pain and courage, all this was something that was coming through these chapters. So again, protest, subversion, and demarginalizing of Muslim women's voices. So the main term here would be the voice, right? So sometimes when you see a person who's behind the veil, you can't even think that they have a voice. Probably they're just whispering, and they're not talking loudly. And what will be for them to just inhabit that space and travel in a very exist in a cloistered environment. So even if they're traveling, again, people don't even get to see them. It's there, they covered their veil. And especially there are certain differences. Elite Muslim women had a little bit of freedom where they could just walk without the veil and all. But then the voice is something that we are really focusing here. And also to reimagine the space of Zenana as a space where productive discussions were happening, because women in the Zenana had opinions about the political decisions that were taken during at that point of time. So they were also being consulted by the men in the family, when decisions were taken. So this complete subversion, complete reimagining of their roles within the house, as well as people who worked. There were women who were working, who wanted to, actually first generation of women who were ready to go to colleges and take their degree, their bachelor's degree. So Atia Hussain, she was from Taluktari, the first author that we were seeing here. So she was the first female to be admitted into a undergraduate course at that point of time. She, in fact, wanted to pursue her higher education in Cambridge. She wanted to travel abroad, which was denied, obviously, because for her father, who was so-called progressive, just getting his daughter educated in that undergraduate course itself was a big act of revolution for him. And apart from that, he wouldn't allow her to continue the studies, and she was married off to her cousin. So again, can silence be a source in history? So again, forgotten lives of six Indian Muslim female authors. Another chapter that focuses on the political contributions of Indian Muslim women. So here we were focusing on the names that I've put here, right? Anis Fatima, Nishatunisa Mohani, Abadi Banu Begum. So the Begums, actually, in Bhopal also, if you see, they were making a significant statement by deciding certain, coming out with certain regulations, and I think revolutionary regulations that allowed Muslim girls to pursue their education. So somewhere, education as a tool of empowerment. So that realization was happening. And again, fighting against patriarchy. So all these things were happening in the background, but still certain revolutionary action like this, that was promoted by Muslim women. That's very important, right? So they were, once they get that power and authority, they started favoring, and they started opening doors for Muslim girls to be educated. So alongside, you also see a lot of disturbance that's happening because of the political turbulence. But still, these women, they did their best in a little way or the other to open a wider door for the other Muslim women to travel towards their journey of achieving their dreams. Because if you see in these life writings, you see like whatever little dreams they had, other than marriage, they shouldn't be dreaming of anything, is what is understood. They were trained in their religious studies. Whatever they are trained is to become a wife, is to become, get married and be a good wife, and then mother for the children. But any other aspirations other than building a domestic household or being a wife was completely discouraged. But then these kind of actions that were taken by women of power, Muslim women of power, they were definitely making the opening, as I told you, a bigger door for the future generation to explore their dreams, to follow their passion. And this is very, very important. So they should be remembered as, really as significant women of history, and their voices are very important. And some way or the other, whatever freedom Muslim women are enjoying now, whatever it is, maybe with some limitations, it's because of these kind of actions that have been taken. So they have to be acknowledged for that, and their space in history and in politics, or in recognition of what they've done, has to be reclaimed. And that was one of the major aims of these chapters across this volume. Again, home and domesticity, that's a very, very important theme that this book is really focusing on, because we are talking about life writing. So where does life actually begin? At home, right? So even when women are working, or what, they go out, they come in. So there's a lot of spaces that they inhabit at a particular timeline. But then the space that they inhabit at home is very important, because that's where they actually experience the raw experience of patriarchy, or the way the gender discrimination, or how their fathers treat them or their siblings treat them, and they start identifying themselves as someone who needs to voice out. So especially when it comes to Ismat Shukta, I think her prolific body of work, her own autobiography titled A Life in Words, it's definitely something that it will talk to you about what it is to be a Muslim woman in India, and what it is to be a Muslim woman inside a family with mixed opinions. There were few, I mean, more than men, I think women were discouraging her and her family to pursue her higher education. It was her father and it was her brothers who were actually supporting her to go ahead with her literary aspirations, and supporting her to write and publish. So that was also another surprising element. So we call it as patriarchy. We say that men are, like, stopping them from doing all that, but it was actually no, because men at that time, they were influenced by this British, and they wanted to see their women to be more progressive, and somewhere they were trying to encourage their daughters, if they had any aspirations other than getting married and settling down. But then it was women like the grandmother or the mother, the aunts, who were trying to stop them from exploring anything other than marriage, or not, they that was considered very unconventional and very strange. And I think Ismat Shuktai does it brutally, in the sense, very honestly, she talks about how she fights out all this in her own family with the help of her brothers and her dad, who supported her throughout her ambitious career that she had as a screenwriter, as a publisher. I think she played many other roles, and also she was very popular writer as a part of the progressive writers movement. And I think she also had a good literary circle where she brought in other writers as well. And that PW, I think, Progressive Writers Association, played a very important role, especially during the independence movement. And yes, Ismat Chugtai, again, she is a very, Ismat Chugtai, I think few people have taken her in the chapters, few authors have focused on her. And again, Anis Jung's Unveiling India. So here, again, the comparative literary analysis of the two texts. This is one of the chapters, which is titled as Voices Behind the Wave. So mapping the journey of Indian Muslim women. So just taking few texts as an example to show how that, what are the modes that's used to document life narratives, a true reflection of the writer's epoch. That's very, very important, because through the life writing, I think anyone can't write about their life without talking about the times they inhabit, the times they have been living through. But when it comes to Muslim women, it's all the more relevant, because especially these writers who belong to the pre-independence era, and who were suffering because of that partition. They literally had to, their families were separated, and they were experiencing an identity crisis. They're torn between the two countries. And so all this is very, very significantly captured in their autobiographies and in their memoirs. So this is something this particular paper is talking about. And then we have there's also equally the volume focuses on royal Mughal women. So I think works of Ira Mukoti, like Daughters of the Sun, and I think she's been focusing some on reclaiming, giving them the proper space that history has actually neglected. Because when we talk about history, even in our history textbooks, you will only be seeing the mentioning of the names of these royal Mughal women, right? So the focus is only on Akbar or Jahangir or Shah Jahan, and it's their construction, their architect, because it's always attributed whatever glory the Mughal era that India witnessed, it's always attributed to the men, to the kings there. But then when you read text by Ira Mukoti, Daughters of the Sun, you will understand that, Shah Jahan's daughters were actually excellent. They were very, very well versed in architectural knowledge. So they were the ones who were actually helping out and building a lot of architectural structures in the northern part of the country, which is not really focused, and it's not really given importance in history. So they were supporting the men. They were literally acting as the backbone of the family when the men were busy fighting, and they were into the war. So they were running the entire kingdom. But then we don't get to know about them. Only in the recent times we see authors actually coming out with this historical presence, the importance of the presence of royal Mughal, just mentioning their names, what they actually did. the buildings that they commissioned, and the just places that they actually helped in planning, and what are the revolutionary rules that they brought in. Everything has been coming out in the recent days, which is very, very good. And I think if you just focus Muslim women in history itself, that can be in a volume, in a complete different volume. But then, just to start with this entire idea of blending life writing and autoethnography in Indian Muslim women's life writing, we just having text all over. But then, if once I started reading, and once I started going through this project, especially as an editor, I understood in history itself, you have, that it's a separate branch. If I have to pick another edition, and I know, and work on another project, and then I have to come with a whole new call for chapters for historical royal Mughal women itself. So this is just some examples. Lives in the shadows of empire. So the empire and the kings, definitely their larger presence overshadowed the existence of these women who are actually running the kingdom, who are actually taking, helping the men in taking such decisions, which is not really mentioned in any of our history textbooks, as we know, just other than the names. And then there's this another paper which is very interesting: Muslim women negotiating representation, regional religion. So this is about Shamshad Hussein's autoethnographic documentation of lives of Muslim women in Kerala. So again, these texts are something I found it very new, because in regional, in a state where we can't really figure out what Muslim women are actually up to when it comes to literature, because we will have some regional writers who are writing. Probably there's no, they're waiting for their works to be translated. So in Tamil Nadu, the state that I'm coming from, we have a popular writer. We have Salma, who's been, her works are going to be published. So first it was written in Tamil, and now it's translated. So she's a Muslim writer. She talks about patriarchy, in the villages of Tamil Nadu, how she literally, she couldn't actually, she had to publish her work secretly. So all this is happening. The regional voices also have to be equally heard. And when this paper was something that was really interesting, because it talks about a Muslim women academic who focuses on collecting a detailed ethnographical detail, that she talks about the lives of invisibilized Muslim women in Kerala. So through her experience, through her autoethnographic account, she tries to focus on the silenced voices of the women in her state. So I think I didn't go for other chapters in detail, because I know it'll take a long time, and this is just to give you an idea of what this book is actually talking about. So you see writers, you see different Muslim women from different walks of life. So mostly writers, because we are from literature background. But apart from writers, also we have people like academicians, and we have people like Ismat, who's also a writer as well as a popular director, and historical women. So all walks of life. And what we are trying to see here is, if you're just going to pick up Muslim women's life writing, you see that there's always attempt made to bring in the voices of her community, especially the women in her community. So that's what Shamshad Hussain has done here. So there is because you feel like this one woman who she is educated from that community, Muslim women, she tries her best to bring out the stories of her entire community. And through the community, through the stories of the community, through the culture, through the autoethnographic documentation of that, of that particular narrative, one comes to know about the culture of that particular community, ethnicity. So you see, it's a whole new set of knowledge that's been adding, right? It's not just, but then when you go deeper, you understand that it's a story of generations waiting to be told. It's stories of an entire culture that's waiting to be shared, lives and experiences, lived experiences of women, which is very, very important. And this particular volume is just made a very preliminary step in bringing together these voices from different walks of life. But if I'm supposed to just specialize in certain things, as I told you, history itself will be in a volume, or even talking about Muslim women from the field of different fields, probably from literature or in academia itself, will be a complete new volume, right? So this is just the beginning. So this book is going to really talk about what can be done as a starting point of approaching a Muslim women's life writing from the perspective of autoethnography. So I'm just about to conclude with the words of Professor Hybel Dix in his foreword. He says, in many cases, the resources provided for Indian Muslim women women by the community also turn out to be the limitations, obviously, the definitive limitations and restriction against which they rebel. So when I mean voice is the word that I kept using throughout my presentation. I also mean the rebellion, right? Because when you're trying to raise out your voice, when you want your voice to be registered, in the case here that I'm discussing, it's the Muslim woman's voice, there's also a rebellion that follows. And the rebellion turns out to be the story. The voice itself turns out to be a story. The story of how the voice comes into the existence, the story of how the rebellion is happening, and how it is being supported by a group of people, how it's being discouraged by a group of people. And amidst all this, you see a single person trying to define her own identity. So all this is very, very important as you approach a life writing text of a Muslim woman. So again, faced by a number of dilemmas that are simultaneously personal and cultural, and their experiences particular to themselves cannot be generalized. Again, depends on the different communities that they come from. Because if you see, you can't generalize and say that all Muslim women go through the same experience, because there's a huge difference that lies within the community, within the culture, within the language, that the different sects that they follow. So religious differences are also there, so it all differs. But then apart from the differences, what we should be able to validate the experience that they're bringing, the pain or the suffering, and in many ways we should be able to celebrate their voices. From wherever it's coming, the voice is important, because to bring that voice into into the forefront, they take a lot of it takes a whole lot of stories behind it. So what emerges is an account of how the very rich cultural resources provided for a community by its cultural traditions can be empowering, but at the same time can be both stifling and restricting. The initial thought that I had mentioned about how they had this love-hate relationship with the culture. They wish their culture was loved for the obviously for the heritage, for the history, for certain rituals that were really unique to the culture, but definitely not for the restrictions that were trying to stop them from going ahead and exploring and following their dreams. So this is the tightrope that the many different Indian Muslim women writers have been discussed in this particular volume. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Yes, this is the link for the book that I can actually share, and it's available in Amazon, the Kindle edition. So you can check the page that I'll be the link, the publication URL, and you can go through that. And if this is interesting, you can try purchase a copy of the book, and maybe recommend it to people who might find it interesting. So with this, I'd like to end my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. And I think I speak for other people here as well when I say, after listening to this whole discussion, I just want to go back and buy all of these books and experience it myself.
Definitely. Thank you,
Like,
Riddhi.
honestly, it's just to experience because, see, I'm sure you will also agree that women's writings, let alone Muslim women writing, has been erased for like decades. And we're so happy that you have brought it in the forefront. You have, and it was a beautiful discussion, honestly. So you kind of thank you for sharing your intellectual journey behind this remarkable book. And so before we begin our discussion, so this is a gentle reminder to please check the chat box for participation certificate form as well as speaker interest form if you haven't filled them out already. And I open the floor for discussion. I have some of my own. So please go ahead. Dr. Safreen, maybe we can stop the screen projection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it
One
possible?
second, one second. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've stopped it.
Yeah, so we would love to hear from all of you questions, reflections, comments. Either you can unmute yourself and speak, and obviously the chat box is there as well. So
I think I would like to give the opportunity to Dr. Oli Roy first, and then I can jump in. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Dr. Safin. That was, as Ridhida said, right, it was a very interesting discussion. And women's voices and writings, like it intrigues me. And thank you for the discussion today. I have not, sadly, not explored Muslim women writings. So, like, I have one question. You mentioned at the very beginning that the writings belong to different time periods. So,
Yes.
did you see a shift, the way they resisted or raised their voices from one time period to another?
Definitely, this is thank you for that question, because the voices that I've been observing through these narratives, I would say definitely there's a shift depending on the situation. For example, if I'm going to talk about a text about a woman who's going to write at the time of a pre-independence era, and now if it's going to be anyone who's writing currently, a Muslim woman, one can definitely find a significant change in the voice. And I think that shows how much they have traveled, right? It's not the same. As I told you, there's a huge change that's happening, but then that's not enough at the same time. So again, everyone is trying to push through and come, there are certain boundaries that they have to cross. But then, as you said, there's a significant change in the voices that we are hearing. And I think the rebellion is constantly increasing. And I think the more the voices we hear, the more the rebellion, the voices are trying to come into the mainstream. And slowly, people who are trying to push them towards the margin, I think they're losing their power. But it's happening at a slow rate. Not, I would say there's a very significant change or an rapid change, but then the change is happening. So as per the change, the voices also keep changing, but definitely there is a change. Definitely there is a struggle, but at the same time, it's not easily had. You need to fight a lot, and the voices that are ready to fight are the voices that are going to be heard. Without fight and without struggle, I think I'm really talking about the situation that we are also watching now, with the student movement and all. So there should be a fight, unless you fight, you turn people towards you. Otherwise, you are behind the way you exist without being noticed. Unless you make that noise, you make that movement, you push pull, that struggle happens, people are going to turn and see that you are actually existing. And that
Yeah.
way, I think resistance is happening,
So,
the
and
change is happening.
yeah, like the change, in whichever form it is, there should be
Mm.
one like change. Like, I'm definitely going to get a copy of your book. So thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Dr.
much.
Fee. Thank you so much.
Gurni, did you have your question? Please go ahead.
Yes, at first, I would like to thank Dr. Safrine for choosing Socioscopia to present your first book publication. And it was a mesmerizing and very, very, very inspiring discussion that we have listened. And I think it is also very brave and very, very empowering to take up Muslim women's writing, especially when it comes to the current contemporary political situation right now in India. And thank you for pursuing this research, because it's very, very critical to discuss Muslim women's writing. I mean, if I understood it correctly, I'm not quite sure that you have got chapters mostly from royal women and urban women, if they are Muslims, or did you also get chapters or contributions also from rural Muslim women's contexts? Or if I am missing it out, or if you do not get any contribution on that, or
No, the thing is, yeah, I mean, like it might, because I didn't choose to pick up other chapters, because I didn't really
Mhm.
want to go into chapter analysis as such.
Hmm.
But then I did get, if you see the text that I was talking about, The Silence That Speaks, it talks about
Yes.
stories of rural women. And
Mhm.
interestingly, I forgot to mention, I think in the 11 chapters, 10 chapters, close to, I think, only, I think, yeah, except for one co-author, all of them are women,
Mhm.
and around 9 authors are Muslim
Mhm.
women. So that
Yeah,
shows, right? So
I
I
think.
think somewhere by contributing to this particular volume, they are sharing it's a voice again that I would really say. So I think I was really happy because Muslim women contributing to this kind of a scholarship. And it was just one co-author who was Professor Dr. Abdul Rahman, and now again he was a Muslim. So I think most of the chapters, like close to 9 chapters, were from Muslim female Muslim women writers from literature background. So somewhere you see, as I think Dr. Oli was pointing out, the voice, the change is seen in how once Muslim women were struggling to even pursue an education are now writing chapters for the book that's talking about Muslim women's stories. So that
Uh,
itself is a
mm,
change. And like how ma'am has asked me, and the question that she asked me, I think this is the answer. I can. It doesn't come in the form of a publication of a text, but through academic scholarships as such that we are seeing, right?
absolutely.
And I hope I'll be able to figure out and find out other projects related to this because it's very vast. And as you go deeper, you will have a lot of voices that needs to be included. And thank you, Gurni, for so much for I was following up, and I think I was behind you, constantly asking about the dates and things like that. And I feel this is a platform that I can always come to share my thoughts about my research. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it is.
Thank
It
you very
really
much.
means a lot to hear these critical dialogues, especially when it comes to like really underrepresented communities, and especially as you were mentioning about the voice and socioscopia actually really amplifies these hidden voices and gives them a platform to be really coming up front and talk about it. So thank you for giving us the opportunities. The pleasure is all ours. And I just want to add, or because I heard that you wanted to take it up to another level in your postdoc journey. I was just curious to like see, because you kind of, this book focuses only on the Indian women context, like very very much Indian, and maybe it would be also nice to look at other contemporary cultures and other spatial backgrounds as well. Maybe like for a postdoc it would be nice to have a comparative viewpoint with maybe another country, or even if it's India. For now probably the book has different regions, but India is also quite big. So maybe diverse locations, maybe more diverse cultures, like rural urban nexus or something similar to that. Maybe that could be very very interesting also to explore, because I think all these women who are writing at the moment are still um, very very much like coming from an underprivileged or underrepresented background, but also at the same point of time they are more privileged than the rest who are not getting the opportunity to write. And
Yes.
there are a lot of divisions happening. And as I think in the beginning of the presentation you were discussing about resistance, probably the challenges or something that probably you have experienced, or maybe the contributors have experienced to formulate this entire volume. Maybe I would like to know like how, what are the challenges probably that you have experienced to take up this project, and how did you cope with these challenges? Maybe especially as beginners like us, it would be really nice to know.
So challenges in the sense, I had my own challenges as the editor. It wasn't easy for me. I think first of all, I had my doubts whether I would get enough papers to publish this volume, because at least I would needed, like more than 8 papers for a decent volume to come out. So, but then I was keeping my fingers crossed, and I was little worried. I thought if I couldn't proceed with this, then probably I was having my own doubts. But then I really wanted this, the project to come. And because as many of you would have shared, this, I feel it was quite new and still, this kind of a beginning or an attempt would definitely open doors for further research in Muslim women's life writing. But then, luckily, as I told you, initially I got around 20 abstracts, but then slowly it started coming down, and I was a little worried whether I would be able to pull this project ahead. But then, what stayed were the chapters that stayed were definitely from contributors who were passionate, who were since they were Muslim women, they would also wanted to see this coming so that we can have discussions like this. Somewhere they were trying to, it was like bringing their own community attention, bringing their own community to the center. So this was taken. Whoever has contributed is definitely not just done for the bigger project that they were too meaningfully that they have contributed. As an editor, I had that challenge. You prepare, you think that you'll get this many number of chapters, but towards when you're trying to finish it up, you're constantly behind the contributors. Some of them submit it on time, some of them they don't. This is my editorial experience. I feel like I'm sandwiched in between the people who submit it early and people who make me constantly remind. And somewhere with the deadlines I struggled a lot, and at one point I was worried whether this would really come to a conclusion. But then I think it was worth the wait and the journey and the effort that we took. Finally I was able to get the chapters on time, and we initially had, like, even the timeline shifted. We thought we'll take 6 months to publish, but then it became a year. There was also some delay from the publisher's side as well, because a lot of formatting and all editorial related challenges only for me. That's the thing that I felt. And at one point I was also thinking, it's better I would start writing something individually, because to coordinate with all of them, it's not easy. And remember, I'm an independent researcher. I'm not an assistant. I was an assistant professor. I quit my job to explore and to get that freedom of time so that I can explore other things as well. But then if you are into academia, it's easy, right? It maybe your colleagues can help you. They can pitch in a chapter. You'll constantly remind them. You will have better networking and all. But for me, as an independent researcher, to pull this project, I think for me, it's a milestone, and I hope I'll be able to take your suggestion of that, for my postdoc as well. It's a very valuable suggestion that you've given me, because definitely, the rural voices, as you told, that's very important, because we need to go into the interior part and see what are the voices still that needs to be unearthed, and also compare it to study, as you told. When we going to compare the experiences of women, maybe from our country and other country, somewhere we will know where we are still standing as Muslim women's lived experiences are shared. So thank you for that suggestion, Gurneet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Safrin. I really wanted to ask you about the challenges and the solutions, because one of the reason is also that because Socioscopia really wants to amplify the voices of the early career researchers, and also as you took up the brave step and completed this milestone, that to formulate a book, being an independent researcher, and also this is your first time journey. So maybe others who are joining us and hearing will be hearing you even after this session through our YouTube live stream or any
Yes.
other forms of circulation. They can get also inspired to take up new projects like you did. And it is really an inspiring journey that you are carrying forward. And I wish you all the very best to take it
Lot of
forward.
patience. We need a lot of patience in this journey. As an editor,
Absolutely.
I could just come out with an article itself to say that how far, it's like, as I told you, I'm always with people who give it on time and people who keep me in that position where I have to keep asking them again and again. So again, I get reminders from people who give it on time. They'll be like, "Ma'am, when is going to get published?" And I have to say, still some authors are waiting. I'm waiting to. And sometimes when you finish the editing work, you ask them to do certain changes. The response is not immediately given, and I can understand, because most of them are working. They are also faculty members, right? So they have their own work, and to respond to my mails. So all this is something that you should hold a lot of patience. And what helped me was I was constantly visualizing that this book will definitely happen, and one day I'll be discussing about this book. And today it's happened. I think you should go with this positive mindset and really hold on to that thought and travel as you keep moving ahead. That's very important uh, in this editorial journey.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Over to you, Riddhi. I have nothing else to say, but
I
yes, just
actually have some
yeah, you have.
questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
So, Dr. Safreen, I actually wanted to ask, like, how do questions of faith, gender, and nationhood kind of intersect in this life writings? Like, is religious identity something these women embrace, or they negotiate or resist in their storytelling? Is something I was very interested into. If you can,
The answer is they do all the three. That's where the
they do all the.
confusion as a reader for us. They embrace, they negotiate, and they resist. And as I told you, that love hate relationship that I was telling you,
Right,
yes, they are at certain point of time, they're proud. They are like, yes, I'm a Muslim woman. At one
right,
point, when a restriction comes, they fight. and another point of time they, it's like, again, you can't draw neat lines. That's where the boundaries are blurring. And I think in literature you can't put it into a box and say, yes, that's what she's going through. And life writing, if life could be that mysterious, obviously we agree, sometimes we don't know what we are actually feeling. And we do experience that, as I won't say as a man or a woman, but then as an individual, sometimes we really can't categorize our feelings and say that sometimes a mixture of happy and sad, and we can't really say that this is the emotion that we are going through. There are moments like that, right? Not always we can be neatly compartmentalized into certain things and say. And for them this is the same way. As you said, I have seen women who are embracing it and they're saying, yes, we are Muslim women, and they do it in a way. And there are women who resist and they do go in another way. So there are, as you said, all this intersect. At the end we are only focusing on how the voice comes out. Okay, if they're going to embrace their faith and still they bring their voice by embracing their faith, yes. And then there's the next another section who's fighting it out and still they're coming out with the voice. Again the voice comes. So at the end it's to make them feel that they are seen and they are heard, whatever way or whatever, as you said, maybe a combination of all, or choosing one or two. That is their own choice.
Correct. But also, like, did you find that this women shows something to not write about, like where their silences and omissions, as in the analysis, like on any particular
Definitely. For
particular
example,
topic? They, yeah,
in life writing itself, to generally, if I say,
yeah,
if I'm going to write my own story, I have the, as a author, I can definitely say that I need not reveal entire my life to the reader, right? It's my choice. So here I would say that Ismat Shukta's life in words, and something that's been debated about that book is she never chooses to talk about her marriage, or it's only like, we know that she's married to a director, and that marriage was not that great. So someone who's so vocal, someone who's like so frankly discusses about everything that's happening in her house, especially during her childhood and her experience with siblings and all, completely she removes this part of this unhappy marriage, or a turbulent marriage, I would say. And then you see her just talking about her, she removes that from that. And we don't know, we can't actually question them. So there is a silence. If there's a silence, remember, the silence is also speaking. In a life writing text, if someone is choosing to avoid something, I believe that speaks more than what they're choosing to write about. We are being invited to focus more on the absence than the presence, because absences are going to talk something. So if the person is avoiding about talking about a section about their life, probably that's too traumatic to touch about. They are having their own boundaries when it comes to share their experiences. And what is this vital decision? Because avoiding something depicting, I mean, something like a marriage, or talking about your parents or something from a life history or from your own experience, it has something deeper to think about. See, remember, when the absence is so prominent, people start questioning and they'll go start researching. And that's what happened for Ismat also. So then people are like, why she's not even talking about that marriage? Then when they discover that, they know that it's not a happy thing to talk about. She had her own struggle there. So we know someone who's as vocal as Ismat is trying to avoid this. At that moment, you see a woman who's all the more powerful to talk about all the social problems women were facing at that time. She was like known for not hiding anything or not glossing over anything. But from such a woman, you see this kind of an absence happening. So again, you see very a paradoxical way. Like, yeah, she can be as frank as possible, but when it comes to certain parts which might be hurting, she tries to remove that as well. Again, we are invited to celebrate that diversity within that persona.
right. That was beautiful explanation. Thank you. And please feel free to ask more questions. I think we have some time for one or two, if
I
anybody
think
has some.
there's some question in the chat box from Sarvat Sandrin. Okay, autobiographies probably, you can try. I'm not sure which autobiography, or I mean, like, we have autobiographies of Indian Muslim women. I can share. Probably you can check the publication, if you check this volume itself, few of them have chosen a lot autobiographies. So you can just check the publication URL, and that will give you the list of chapters, and you can check the text from there. And I think few of them I've already mentioned here was Isma Chughtai's A Life in Words, and Zarina Bhatti's text is there. It depends on which field you're focusing on. So are you focusing on Muslim women from academia, or it's like, because you're also comparing with Dalit women, so I should see where the comparison actually, like, what is the factor that you are taking into consideration when you're comparing. But then we have quite a few autobiographies by Muslim women, especially written, more than I think in the current time. I think you have a lot written during the period of independence, pre-independence, post-independence, partition time. So we have Saida Banos, An Unconventional Life, My Unconventional Life. I mean, you can just check the title. So these are the three books that I've personally worked on and published papers and reviews. You can just try with, I think, Zuban Publishing House. They do a lot of, they are in a mission to unearth these voices. So for Muslim women, so check out their publication in their autobiography section. You will have a lot of books written by Muslim women, Indian Muslim women. And you can just check and see where you can actually do the comparison, because for a comparison also you need to have certain factors, right, for checking that out. So I think that answer helps you, Sarwar. Hope that helps.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution, ma'am.
Welcome.
If we, Acha, okay, Jagoshini, you have some question. Please go ahead.
Yes, yes. So I was actually waiting for others to, complete their questions. So firstly, thank you so much, Dr. Safrine, for that wonderful presentation. Sorry, I can't, turn on my camera due to some technical issues. So,
No problem. No
so thank
issues.
you. So thank you so much once again. So my question is basically a follow-up question for, the what Ghuni basically asked about, the backgrounds of the authors. So I just wanted to ask, like, I'm particularly interested in this whole concept of reflexivity. So you mentioned that most of the authors are basically Muslim women or, women. So I would like to ask that, have you seen any difference in the nature of reflexivity between authors who are Muslim and women, and those who are not women or not Muslim? So I would like to ask that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, because that's something that even I was interested, because since I received majority of chapters from Muslim women, so I think a couple of them who are worked on this. I think that Royal Mughal women that I was talking about. I think she was a professor. She was non-Muslim. So when I see that kind of papers, I think the reflexivity part is definitely something that I've been observing. So when it comes to Muslim women authors, there is a touch of personal. I could see the personal coming out in that chapters that they're writing. But when it's like a non-Muslim, I feel that they're approaching that particular text as from a very historical perspective, probably as a marginalized voice or a historical person who's not been given the credit of doing something, but when it comes to a Muslim women author, I could see the experiences connecting, because I've seen certain authors in their chapters mentioning that, saying that they could actually connect this particular life narrative with their own life. So that's when the autoethnography also happens, right? Because if you are able to reflect on the culture that you're talking about, or if you see a text that's talking about a culture or a community that you come from, you can really connect with them. So this kind of connection has happened when it comes to uh, the chapters, the research papers authored by Muslim writers. So that definitely that I have seen. But then one connection is obviously, or I think all the 10 of them are women, so that's there. So obviously the marginalization because of gender discrimination, so that can definitely be a connection. But apart from that, I could see a strong personal connection when it comes to Muslim female authors, and that's something I think is a very extraordinary feature of this book, because that's where I could see that when it comes to Muslim women, I think Muslim women are standing up and trying to support this project, support this kind of a scholarship, so that the voices are heard, and through that their experiences are also shared. few authors have shared their own experiences by trying to connect with the author's life, which even I could do as a life writing scholar. I think as a life writing scholar, we are invited to do that, because when we read about another person's life, if there's something relatable, we are able to connect with them. And all the more the connection becomes strong if it's from the same religion, if it's from the same faith and gender and all this. So definitely that's something that I've observed.
Right. Thank you so much. I have another question actually. So I would like to also ask you about the methodology that have been used in the different chapters. And also, like I think some of the texts that have been, used in the chapters basically as, maybe reference texts. So I think some of them are not in English. I think they have been, translated or like, right, by the authors themselves, or maybe the translated versions have been used. So I just wanted to know about the politics of translation also in this context. Like, how do we, like, whether they use the, the original language as well and then translate it, and how did that basically, like, how did you actually understand this whole concept of politics of translation in your book, and also the methodology? Like, how do you interpret autoethnography and like basically these two things? Yeah.
The methodology, the thing is, as you know, from since we are from literature background, the methodology is definitely close reading. So I got to read the texts as well, and I had the authors helping me out by giving a, especially if it's a translation, they gave me a glossary of words, and the notes, for each some chapters they carry the notes of how the translation has actually been done. Some of the translations were available, and then I think one of the chapters the author, she had translated because it's her mother tongue, and it was easy for her. And again, I was asking them about the words that they actually gave me additional content where I could just go through certain words that's been used. And some of the words where exact translation was not available, the words have been retained, they've just used as it is, and then an explanation has been given in the footnote, that way to avoid any kind of a misunderstanding of a particular word or a language that's been used. Only few text I think I dealt with the translation text. I think 2 or 3 text, if I'm not wrong. The rest of it, the methodology is definitely close reading, and we were applying mostly we were trying to use the autoethnography as a theoretical practice, where we were constantly trying to blend life writing and autoethnography. If you see, it might look to, of course, the auto is the common part that we are really talking about, the self. So autoethnographical tenets were used in the sense we were trying to connect the experiences of the writers, the text, the voices of the voices with the culture that they are actually coming from. And all the more the authors, the contributors who were working on it, they were also trying to connect their experience. So if you see, the connections were happening at 2 levels, I would say. One is with the voices within the text, and one, the author, the contributor, one for the author who has actually written the text, her culture and her identity and her community, and another level with the contributor who's working on the text. So you see the multiple layers of connection that's happening, that makes it, all the more a challenging, as well as a very I think that's kind of an extraordinary approach that we try to do it here, because since it's life writing, we can't approach it like any other theory where we can distance ourselves from it. We are trying to involve, and since most of them were Muslim women, that involvement was very, very it was very evident, I would say. I
Thank
hope
you
that
so much for explaining that so beautifully. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasafreen. If we don't have more questions, I think we are coming to the end of the today's session. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to you. It was a beautiful Sunday and a beautiful evening to listen to you. It has been truly, actually, intellectually stimulating. We don't hear Muslim women's voices as often in the mainstream, and so glad you brought it out. A very special thank you to the incredible Socioscopia team who is worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make each of these events happen. And of course, a heartfelt thank you to the founders, Ghuni and Jagbosheni, for their continued vision, their dedication, their commitment to building Socioscopia. And we hope
Yeah,
to welcome all.
I'll just have a word. Sarvat has asked about, I didn't read the entire message. She's mentioned about Pasmanda Muslims. I think this particular sect, You can check with Dr. Shireen's work. She is a postdoctoral fellow at National Law